Well, let's focus on our conversation of the day. As I mentioned, there is the rise of coaching, and especially in this pandemic, clearly, this is one of the professions that the pandemic has somewhat smiled upon. Well, to help us understand what exactly coaching is, how you can actually tap into it as a self-improvement tool, and of course, be part and parcel of this profession is Emily Kamunde Osoro, who is a Global Director, International Coaching Federation. We're also joined virtually by Evelyn Munyoki, who is the Human Resource Director at the Kenya Airways, and of course Lucas Maranga, who is a mentor and also an entrepreneur. Thank you all for joining us on this conversation. And definitely, Emily, as we said, this is one of those professions that the pandemic seemed to have smiled upon. Why do you think so?
Well, you could say that in some ways, and also just to highlight that actually the profession has been on the growth curve for the last few years. It's one of the fastest growing industries as it is. Even pre-COVID, it was among the top 2 professions on the growth. And I think I would say that people are more, kind of geared now towards humanity. People are looking for connection. They're looking for community. And I think coaching is one of those human interventions that's really powerful in influencing change, both at a personal level and also in organizations. So there's definitely a place for it. And I'll be discussing with you a few of those trends as we go along.
All right. So let's start off by defining what coaching is.
Yeah. So let me give you the definition for the International Coaching Federation, which is it's a partnership with clients in a thought-provoking process and creative process. It's really about empowering the client so that they can maximize their personal and professional potential. Coaching in itself supports clients to kind of create more awareness about themselves, and really tap into their innate potential for whatever it is that they want to achieve. So working with a coach helps you kind of just get somebody to be accountable, and then it helps you increase that responsibility and drives you towards action.
And I was reading on it and I came across this statement. It is helping a person to learn rather than teaching them. Expound.
Right. So teaching is about sharing information. I am telling you, in coaching, we don't do that. We depend on the client's resources because they are resourceful. They have what it takes to be able to actually deliver it. So in coaching, we tap into their own potential. We ask them powerful questions, thought-provoking, so to speak, because we are then wanting to tap into their own creativity. You realize it's actually been proven that even in classrooms or in teaching or training professions, coaching contributes to maybe more than 70% when it comes to integrating what it is that you're learning, as opposed to classroom teaching. Maybe in 3 weeks or so, you'll have probably forgotten it. But when you use the coaching intervention, it kind of helps to integrate it more.
Okay, so there's still learning involved. It's just that the how is what is different.
Absolutely. And then the responsibility is on you who's taking on the learning, because then you actually get to act on it. It's not being told, do this. It's about self-drive. I think when it comes from the individual, it's actually more powerful. And you know what? Actually, people don't realize, but they have got so much potential in themselves. The only thing is that we don't take a lot of time to actually think and reflect around that. And that's what coaches help us do. Because by doing that, you're able to then discover so much more about yourself and be able to actually be more in whatever it is that you're doing.
So let's bring in Evelyn and Lucas, who have been recipients of coaching one way or another. And Evelyn, I'll start off with you on a personal level. Have you actually been a recipient of coaching?
Thanks, Gladys. Thank you for that. Yes, I have been, and I have to say, like Emily has mentioned, it's a very thought-provoking process, very creative, and actually forces you to literally pulls you into a place where you can actually figure out some things for yourself, but actually maximize your own potential in a personal and also in the professional space. What I find interesting is that coaching is just not for your professional space. It's actually a lot more useful even for your life skill, because it is a life skill at the end of the day.
So what brought you around to actually tap into coaching? Was there a need that you felt needed to be filled?
Okay, so I can speak about this from both personal and a professional perspective.
Yes.
On a personal basis, you do have challenges that you will experience as an individual, and some of those things, instead of finding solutions that are come from a different person or different spaces, even if those resources do help you, I think it's tapping into yourself and actually finding out what is it that I really want to get out of this life as part of your purpose. Of course, having your life centered on faith is a fantastic thing. Mm-hmm. And one of the other things that actually coaching does is to really tap into that place as an individual and get you to really attach your passion then to your purpose. But on the professional side, I think because of the roles that I have been in, you find that coaching actually is one of the capabilities you cannot afford not to have. So I bought into it quite early, had conversations about coaching quite early, and then now figuring out how do you get the rest of the organization or the groups of people you want to in the organization to actually experience the gift of coaching, because coaching is a gift to us and literally gives us almost like I would say like a second lease of life when you think about how then you're able to really accelerate having been a recipient of coaching and an beneficiary of coaching at both personal and a professional level.
I like the word coaching is a gift. Lucas, do you feel the same, and how or when did you actually start experiencing coaching? Lucas? Can you hear us? Okay, we seem to be having a technical hitch with that, but I'll come back to you, Emily. She talks about it being the gift that keeps on giving. Perhaps you can tell us how, and of course, help us understand what the difference is between coaching and therapy, counseling, or even mentoring.
Right. So I think, like Evelyn says, coaching is a gift in the sense that the biggest gift you can ever give to yourself is self-awareness. Being able to discover your own strength as an individual and being able to understand what it is that you can improve on, because coaching kind of highlights on your blind spots and therefore makes you a better human. You can interact better with other people and even makes you a better leader in terms of, when you look at the whole spectrum of leadership. So in that sense, it is a gift, and it is a gift because it's not just for leaders, it's not just for individuals at a personal level, but also I think the whole world needs coaching. You use it at home, you use it in your day-to-day interactions, and so it becomes truly something that the world needs. Mm-hmm. And so to your question on the differences between mentoring and counseling or therapy, so all of these are actually helping interventions, and the greatest difference is that if I start with therapy in itself focuses on past deep issues that are more emotional or psychological issues affecting a person, so much so that they are really stuck and they're not able to move forward. So unless they deal with those past issues, then it's not possible even to be able to, you can't coach them, and that's why as coaches, it's important to recognize the need when a client actually needs therapy and not coaching. So on the other side of it, coaching is more future focused. So we focus on today and tomorrow, the present. Where are you now? Where do you want to go? We focus on what's working. Yeah, we push you towards the solution, as opposed to really focusing on, oh, what didn't work? I didn't make it. I'm not good at this, or my past has really affected me in one way or another. So not to say that all of these interventions are important. I think they all have their place. It's about recognizing when is it that you need to apply or send a client for counseling, and when it is you need to send them for coaching. Mentoring, on the other hand, is also a more long-term relationship. It's more informal as compared to counseling and coaching that are very formal and structured. Mentoring could be very informal and takes a longer period, and most of the times you would look to somebody who's more experienced, who's walked maybe a journey similar to yours, and therefore you want to learn from them. You don't want to make the same mistakes, and probably you admire them in that sense. And so they also hold you accountable, but they're also advising you, they're giving you advice, which is a no-go zone when it comes to coaching. Because remember, we tap into the individual's innate potential and abilities. And so they discover for themselves, and therefore the solutions come from the client.
Okay, we have Lucas back. So when did you, for the first time, experience coaching, and why?
Thank you. I experienced coaching for the first time in 2019. And I always used to hear about that word coaching, but I think it was a loosely used word. At some point, I even considered myself a coach, but after going through this professional coaching, I realized I was being an imposter for a long, long time. So I did it because I felt that I felt like I needed more self-awareness. I felt myself a pretty self-aware person, but I felt I needed to remove myself from myself and look at myself, if that makes sense. And I think coaching helps to a degree in that self-awareness.
Okay, so we have mentioned it as a gift that keeps on giving. Since that experience, how has it expounded your life, so to speak?
It's probably made me, I think one of the biggest things it has done is reduce my blind spots. You know how we always hear that we don't see ourselves? The good book, the Bible says, remove the speck, remove the log from your eye before removing the speck from the other person's eye. I think for me, it has helped me realize a lot of blind spots. Things I thought I had covered, ground I thought I had covered, which I hadn't. And probably that influences how I relate with others and myself and the work that I do. So the biggest benefit, I think, or one of the biggest benefits has been reducing that blind spot in myself.
Okay, and you actually refer yourself as a mentorpreneur. And we've said there are some differences in the mentoring, the therapy, and of course, the coaching in this case. So how did you get into the space of mentoring?
I've been in business almost all my life. And so along the way, you probably earn the stripes and the scars from entrepreneurship. And so you get into the spaces whereby you're mentoring others who are behind you. And now, having put that aside, what I now do more is business coaching. It's something called transition coaching, whereby you realize sometimes there's a mix of the two, but as my colleague said, they're quite different. So I got into, I call myself mentorpreneur because you're mentoring people, but also mentoring as a business. So still mentoring as an entrepreneur. It's just a word that I coined together, yeah. But business coaching is what probably for the last, a good portion of last year, and transition coaching that I've been doing. Now that I'm more familiar with the coaching space and seeing the benefits of it.
Interesting. Now, Evelyn, how would you say that you've been able to tap into this space? How has it changed your life?
Okay, that's a fantastic question. I think one of the things that, like Emily said earlier, is coaching really brings out your self-awareness. And it's a very interesting place for you to be able to draw into the depths of who you are and really be able to recognize that there are some things that you could do differently. And I guess that's one of the most powerful things about coaching, because it continually causes you to think progressively about things, but also thinking about how else would I be able to handle different issues. So, for example, you may actually think that coaching, a lot of people thought coaching is just about being remedial at work and performance. But actually, when you think about it, in your relationships, so dealing with your relationships, whether it's with your child, with your loved ones around you, your family members, and also people you are actually meeting as part of your ecosystem, actually it does help you become more aware of who you are, but also pushes you to start thinking, actually there is more, and there is more, and there is more. And it's not necessarily about achieving more, because people also define success in so many different ways. I think it's just finding significance in that space, that you are very aware of what your purpose is, what your passion is, what your life is based on. That has really helped ground me a lot. In addition to my faith as a Christian, so that actually has helped me in terms of grounding my relationships. Because if you think about it, Gladys, one of the things that we don't necessarily speak out a lot about coaching is that it's a very trust-based relationship with the other person. So unless you have trust in that relationship, and if you have a high trust sort of environment and you're working through different relationships, that establishment of trust actually builds deeper relationships. You will notice that coaching actually is helping me also sort of find out again the art of conversation, because that is one of the arts that is actually disappearing. People actually being able to speak, people actually being able to talk about things, people actually being able to share. That for me is one of the things that has really come from a personal level from coaching.
Ah, great perspectives there. And I think at this point, Emily, somebody is wondering, okay, fine, so when do I decide what I need? You know, because we've said there are different fields of coaching: leadership, career, financial, wellness. How do you decide this is what I need vis-a-vis what I need to learn or tap into?
The beauty about coaching is that it fits everybody. If you are somebody who's looking to work on something, but you're stuck, therefore you need a push, you need someone to keep you accountable, then you need a coach. If you're somebody who's looking to rediscover yourself and your purpose as an individual, coaching helps you to kind of discover and really tap into those God-given gifts and what it is that is your passion. And those two, I think, connect you to your purpose. So coaching kind of creates that environment for you to be able to really ask those important questions of what do I want? Why is this important for me? Why am I in this job, right? What is it that is making me stuck or uncomfortable? And therefore coaching moves you from that space to the next. And so if you're in that kind of space, then I would say you need coaching. And also if you're looking to improve your self-confidence, communication. Evelyn just talked about the communication, those conversations that we have on a day-to-day. A lot of times we have difficulty having those tough conversations or giving feedback and authentic and candid feedback. So coaching really supports you to be able to do that in a very genuine way, and trusting the process and trusting the other person. And the greatest one for me is empathy, which is something that we are learning, especially now. We are in a very difficult environment. The pandemic has kind of equalized us all, and we are facing different challenges at home, different challenges at work. And so what a better way to connect humans in those kind of conversations.
Okay, and I mentioned some of the types. I don't know if that's what you refer to them as. I mean, we've had leadership coaches here, we've had career coaches here. So which other types do we have in terms of the categories?
So our global coaching study done in 2020, actually, we still see business coaching as the one that is tops. It is still trending, and that focuses on areas of leadership coaching, executive coaching, entrepreneurship, and the likes. But there are other types of coaching as well, which include career coaching and life coaching, which has been famous for the longest of times. Yeah. And really the choice of a niche is purely driven by passion. Let's say I've been an academician all my life and I really have a passion for education. I might probably just begin a niche of coaching in that space, all right, as an educationist. And somebody else is really into improving people's personal growth and really looking at their whole spectrum of their lives, and therefore they really look at areas of wellness now, which is really huge, self-care. So life coaches would then go into that space. And if you're more into really supporting people develop in their careers and working with younger people, then you go into that direction. But the training in itself of coaching is I would say it's all the same. The principles and the foundations of coaching are the same, because the standards and principles that are set kind of have a common approach to it. But the choice is really dependent on passion or experience.
Okay, Lucas, you said you have been an entrepreneur for a while, and that's where the business coaching came naturally to you. So did you think perhaps of taking up other forms of coaching like leadership now that you have and own your own company?
Yes, the other area of coaching that I have been enjoying of late, let's call it a niche, as Emily say, is transition coaching, helping people just move from one season of their life to other. I did a certification with an organization called the Halftime Institute, and that has been really exciting. Probably going through my own transitions myself. Well, more like a midlife thing, but helping people who maybe have become restless, either caused by the pandemic or just getting to the end of a season of their life. So I think apart from business coaching, the other area that I'm really excited about is transitions coaching, helping people walk through that, moving from what we call success to significance, whatever success looks like to you.
Okay, and when you think about the experiences you've had throughout your career and of course personal life, transitional coaching, of course the pandemic has heightened it, but is it something that was missing and perhaps now we finally have a title for it?
It was always there, but we go through transitions in the closet. You don't want to show that you're unsettled or you're confused or you're scared, but you kind of feel the nudge inside you, like that discontent, that something else is out there that you need to go to, but you don't know how to go about it. So I think maybe the pandemic just brought out the courage in people like, hey guys, I need help. Help me transition this through these rough waters. So I think it's always been there, we just haven't been aware of it or have been going through it, like I say, in private. Yes.
All right. So, Evelyn, from your experience and where you sit, especially at KQ, what are the needs you've seen, even amongst your team members, in as far as the type of coaching that needs to be enacted within the organization?
So, thanks for that question. Just to build on what my colleagues have said, and also just to really zero in on what kind of needs. One of the things that, and I'll speak to the context that we currently have now. One of the biggest needs is actually how to manage the new dynamics around the pandemic. And what then that portends for leadership is serious challenges, not just for leadership, but for everyone across the organization. But you're still being required to be productive, but also to deal with an immense level of pressure or different things that are completely unprecedented. So what you find is that the way you want to deal with this is how do you coach for resilience? How do you coach for even well-being? We're finding that sometimes we take it for granted that things like self-care, things like well-being actually just happen. But actually during the pandemic, this is one of the things that is a big need. And if you look across HR circles, where the HR practitioners are leading in terms of COVID interventions and making sure that you carry the organization along with you, this is one of the biggest needs. The second need, I think, is just the leadership capability to be able to navigate through the changes that we are seeing. And also the changes not just in the business environment, but also how your workforce is now situated. So you have a lot more remote working. You haven't been able to manage productivity in a remote setup. How do you coach managers and leaders to be coaches? So that you actually are able to connect with people, even in that place of social isolation. You are able to find a way to reconnect people to what it is that we want to as a company, as an organization, and things like that. The situation that we find ourselves as well, and because we know we might never go back to what it was before, so you will always have maybe an aspect of remote working or flexible working now coming as part of our permanent ways of working as companies. Coaching is going to help us and continues to sort of build on the way that you can find ways to collaborate and to build some agility in the organization. Sometimes people think coaching will be a little bit slower because you're asking questions, you're listening, and someone might say, but the organization is too fast-paced for coaching to happen. You can coach literally at every coachable moment within the workplace. And just to be able to create a commitment for it and make sure that the top leadership is actually buying into the fact that coaching is a capability that all companies should actually have. Okay. If you're to see some amazing results, but also be able to see people really rallying around a purpose and around a passion. So that's what I would necessarily talk about.
And that is a good perspective there, because Emily, there are different types of coaching styles, right? And each of these perhaps allude to the need and the results you would like to see, whether in an organization or in a personal basis. When it comes to teams, which are the styles that you've seen that have worked, or is it dependent on the need?
To be honest, I think the coaching styles purely depend on the need, and I probably would refer to different tools. Coaches apply different tools and processes depending on the situation that an individual is. When you're working with teams, the kind of approach you use is very different as opposed to when you're working with a one-on-one individual, because you can actually coach in groups or teams, and you can also coach individuals. So I would say largely also the style that you apply as a coach depends a lot on yourself. So I always say that coaching is largely technique, largely who you are, and then technique comes second. Yeah.
Okay, now just humor me on this one. I was reading up on some of the styles. There was a democratic style of coaching. What is this, and what kind of results would you get out of it?
So, well, I think that's in coaching, we always keep an open mind. You don't go into a coaching session or conversation in mind, this is how I'm going to coach this person. It's never about you, the coach. It's never about what style will I use today, what style am I going to use on this and that other person. It's a very free space, and we always rely a lot on the client to guide the process. Depending on the issues that they bring on board, that's what guides you on what approach of a coaching style to use. Okay,
so if somebody like Evelyn, who is a human resource director, says my team has this need and this is what we'd like you to achieve, even that will not inform you in as far as the style you take up to be able to get maximum results?
I think then you need to kind of, it's not just about listening to what the business leader is, we also want to get to the employees, so that kind of gives you the democratic approach of trying to say, let me look at what do the employees actually need, what are the actual situation in the organization, kind of doing a diagnostic before you go into the organization to coach, so that you're able to really get the picture from the receiver's perspective, as opposed to coming with, this is what I need to offer. And remember, we don't give the solutions. They always come from those who are receiving coaching.
Okay, so I went on to read on democratic coaching, authoritarian, holistic, autocratic, vision coaching, and the list goes on. And I'm wondering, Lucas, even in your time as a coach and also a recipient of the same, which of these techniques do you think brings out the best out of a team and also out of an individual?
I will hesitate to pick a style, whether democratic or authoritarian. I think I will just go probably repeat what Emily has said. It's about coming empty. For me, the most beneficial sessions of coaching I have had as a coachee is when my coach is like a clean slate, like this is your space, just pour it out. And also when I have a session on this other side as a coach with the client, it's just they bring the agenda, they bring the game. You just provide the vehicle as it were, them, but they drive it, you know. And all you do is just get more out of them by asking questions. So I wouldn't say I have applied those silos, whether like the ones you've mentioned. It's just really coming open and coming empty. I like that quote unquote coming empty.
Okay, now Evelyn, you are dealing with a group of people that have different needs. So you have somebody who's perhaps trying to get themselves, to be a better version of themselves. They want a promotion. Somebody else is dealing with issues at home. And there are different things that hinder people's potential. And as a HR director, you want everyone to be pulled up. How do you now decide who needs what, now that you said coaching can happen at any point?
Okay, so one of the things that that's a fantastic question, because it's we need to think about coaching in organizations. I think one of the things that has to be clear is there even, for example, a business case that actually supports why you even want to, for example, embed coaching as a way of life in the organization. And that's, it takes several strands. So maybe if I start with, there will be, and like my colleagues have also said, this is also a process that needs to be demand driven, not necessarily supply driven, because if it's you are supplying coaching and you're not necessarily taking time to figure out, to have people actually come to you and say, actually, I think this is something I'm seeing and maybe we need to actually address it. Maybe coaching is one of the interventions. Remember, coaching is one of the interventions of the many different things in your toolbox as a HR practitioner or even as an entrepreneur like my colleague is. So there are, one of the things that you can use in there is coaching as part of your toolkit. And what then happens is that you have coaching at different levels. So first, there will be those individuals who will come to you and actually say that this is one of the things that they're dealing with, and you actually can identify that as a coaching opportunity. Now, because coaching is, you need to follow it's almost as if you have a lead dancer. So that lead dancer would definitely be your coachee and the person who actually needs the coaching. And sort of like Emily said, flow with that and see where the coaching opportunity lies and how then you can get them to their own understanding of what the issue is and how then they can find ways of finding the answer for themselves, but also being able to repeat that if that shows up again. So it's not necessarily going to create a dependency on just one person, the coach who is helping guide the process. Then we have the organizational decisions bias. We actually take the call and say we feel that coaching should be a way of life, and that one you have to embed as part of the culture, as part of the way you do things in the workplace. That way, it doesn't come across like something additional, extra that you're requiring now people to do. Already they have a plate full, but how you have to sell it is actually how you make this as a way of life by using the different coaching skills. Then you will start to see some changes actually happening. The third way and the final way that I want to talk about is when you have a hybrid where you have identified that coaching is a leadership and an organizational capability you want to embed, and actually because of specific things, you possibly will be saying, we want to be more collaborative, we want to be able to drive productivity, we also want to see how people can become more resilient, we want people to make decisions that actually create a customer-centric organization. Those are some of the needs that would come from the business side. Now, how do you get everyone else in the organization brought into that, and then actually it attaches itself to why they even come to work in the first place? And then see. Yeah.
Okay, and Emily, at this point, I'm thinking there's somebody who's hearing about coaching today for the first time, or perhaps it's part of a culture, but they've really never tapped into it because they're not sold as to why it is important for them. So as somebody who is in a position of influence in the company, could you actually walk up to somebody and say, I think this would be ideal for you and perhaps you should try it out?
Yeah, you could do that. I think I could walk up to somebody as an individual, but also looking at the organizational context. I think we have a lot of research now, especially through the International Coaching Federation, that continues to really reinforce the value and impact of coaching. And some of my colleagues, including the ones that are speaking now, are practicing this in their organizations. And we do have case studies of organizations where coaching has actually worked around. Some of the top benefits of coaching within organizations include improved communication skills, high productivity has improved, work-life balance, and the list is really endless. But when we look at our surveys from the past years, this is what is coming up from the feedback, and we are seeing leaders being more integrative, they're being more collaborative within the organization. And so I would say really there is a place for it. And maybe just to go back a little bit to watch the conversation that we were having, it's not always coaching. all right, even in the organization. Coaching has its place. It's important even for leaders to recognize when it is that we need to be more directive. You know, we need to get things done, and therefore in that particular space, you might have to separate things. If somebody needs to be disciplined, if you need to deal with a performance issue, you could use the coaching skills to have that kind of conversation. But I say that has got its place, just to kind of reflect back into your questions.
Okay, so there are those that are interested to get into this space, you know, be a coach. And Lucas has said he is a coach himself. And I'd like to hear from you. So what are these skill sets that you have that made you stand out as a coach? Even before you even trained, you thought you were already a coach.
I think before, I think I was saying I was a coach or a business coach without understanding like the professional definition of a coach. And I had also gone to training to be what ICF would accept as a coach. And so I was doing it, and it was driven by just the confusion of mentoring, advising, and calling it coaching, because it sounds like a nice sassy word to integrate. But now with what I know now, I was wrong in a sense, because I was not applying the coaching principles. You know, the active listening, for example, of being considerate. I would do it, but I would do that and then cut you short and tell you what I think you should do. So it was all this mixed wheel of different things. But I think going through the training of coaching then also helps with structure, and also helps you remove yourself and give space to the person who you're coaching for their true power and their reflections to come out. That's what the coaching training has done.
So are we saying just you sitting down with a friend and walking with them through a season that you've already experienced does not necessarily make you a coach?
Let me say, I don't think it does fully, because then you can miss out on some of the increased awareness you need to have to maximize the opportunity for the other person to get their answer or to get what they're looking for. Yeah, so you can do it, but it could be a hit or miss. So it's good to come prepared.
Okay, I see Emily shaking her head and saying no. Why?
No. You need training. You need to train as a coach, and I appreciate what Lucas just said, because a lot of us, before we discovered coaching, we called ourselves coaches. I just coached XYZ. Yes. But then when you actually get into a coach training, you realize you start unlearning. Yeah, you start unlearning, and you become even more vulnerable, and you realize I actually didn't know, right? And so I would say, if you want to be a coach, you really need to be able to access accredited kind of training, so that you can have those skills that equip you to be an effective coach and also represent the profession well, because that's what we want.
Yeah. And even as we talk about having the right skill sets, what are these exactly?
Right. So the skills as a coach would be being a very active listener, a good listener. They sound very simplistic, but they are things we take for granted a lot of times. They are around having a judgment-free space, being able to trust, being able to kind of hold the client accountable, and really following them through action, making sure that there's action at the end of the day. So how do you hold a conversation in that kind of environment? How do you maintain presence, right? Being there with the client in the moment, not thinking about their problem that they're talking to you about, not thinking about what advice can I give them, but trusting the process and trusting their journey, and believing that they are resourceful, they are creative, and they are whole. So those are just some of the skills that we learn, and they really help us even as leaders to have even more influencing skills. When you go to the organizational level, you can work with the most difficult leaders, but you thrive if you're able to apply those skills in your communication with them, in your asks with the board. So it really kind of puts you ahead of the pack. and really I would say it adds a lot of value in that sense.
Okay, I'm curious to understand, especially from where you sit, Evelyn, how you're able to separate the fact that you've got to come in as, you know, the leader in place to execute a certain mandate, but also be the coach and want to bring the best out of your team. How do you separate those two, or do they walk hand in hand?
Okay, so thanks. I know Emily mentioned that you actually have to be clear about some of the roles that you play in the organization, and also the context. So the context changes, the situations change from even hour to hour, day to day. I think for someone who is playing as a coach, so for example, if you're a coach in an organization, one of the things is that you find that there will be always opportunities to be always coaching. So for you, every opportunity can turn into a coachable moment. So that's one. The second part is what Emily mentioned, that there will be situations where you have to be directive, you have to be clear about, because when you're giving feedback, you also step away from being in the coaching mode. Because the feedback is very directive, it's actually quite directive in terms of the way you approach it. Now, when you have an organization that then espouses that we can use the coaching style as a way of being, it becomes very easy to be able to still execute, still make sure people are performing, still make sure that people are being disciplined, still make sure that we are taking different actions in the business space. That becomes your way of being. But when you don't have that, then you're clear at there will be where you step out of your role consistently because of. So, for example, if the company something is on fire on the company premises, I don't think that would be the point where you are using coaching and asking questions. What do you think we should do? How do you think you should approach this? There will just be that situation that calls for you to take action immediately. So you might be, as a leader, be more directive in that. And because maybe you have been using a coaching approach consistently, people already have come to getting a solution for that situation in that moment. So actually, you will find that it's very hard to sort of say, now I'm a coach, now I'm a leader, now I'm a manager. I think those roles can kind of mesh into each other, because you use coaching as the underlying style or the underlying capabilities that you need to be able to manage and lead different teams, different situations. And you will find if you've done a really good job, people actually will find solutions for themselves. And they surprise you all the time, because then in that space, you create more coaches out of the coaches that people are taking up coaching in an organization. I want to be careful about being also saying about what Emily said. For a coach, I think it is important to get training to be able to have the right grounding as a coach, so that we also don't have situations where we have people who are sort of holding that title but actually are not practicing what coaching is about. I don't know whether I've answered your question, Gladys.
Yes.
That's how I would respond to that in a very long-winded way.
You have answered that question. And actually, at this point, I'll take a short break. But when we come back, more on the rise of coaching. For any of your questions or comments, remember that number at the bottom of your screen. And you can also reach us on our social media platforms. We'll be right back.
Mzing ni aje? Nataka jo kujiuliza mjamaa jo alidiscover jo sambu inafai kuwe na kona 3. Samosa.
Imedu nini?
Inakuwaga na kona 3 sana, shindwa kwani hata discover ya kona 4 lini.
Mzingwe zimekuraru.
Acha hiyo triangle atafuta hata kama ni pentagon.
To get samosa, dial star 811 star 928 hash. Skiza na Nation.
Never in my life would I wish for you to die instead of your sister. That is not true, because all you ever cared about is Lisa. Just move on!
Never! I'm never going to stop until David suffers. How many times have I told you that, Perla? Can't believe it, really.
And I can't believe that you're acting like this!
How do you want me to react if you go to the other vineyard to be with Miguel without caring about what happens here?
Beat sensitivity pain fast with Sensodyne Rapid Action for clinically proven relief in 60 seconds.
Kwetu Mix in association with Coca-Cola.
Introducing Kwetu Mix.
Okay, but don't need no intro.
Tangu tuingie kwa hii mchezo si ndo heartbeat. Nairobi City tunairan kama heartbeat.
If you know, you know.
We have a banger. Ni show, ni wapi uliniona? Kwetu Mix on MTV.
Tutakuletea updates zote about all the trendy and popular entertainment events.
Yes, bana. Kwetu Mix, keep it locked. NTV, don't touch the dial.
Kwetu Mix in association with Coca-Cola.
Try Panadol Advance for relief from headaches, body aches, and fever. With Panadol's Optizorb formula, the tablet gently breaks down in the stomach, quickly absorbs, and starts providing pain relief in 15 minutes. For fast and effective pain relief that you can trust, try Panadol Advance.
Thank you for staying with Your World. My name is Gladys Gachanja. Before we get back to a conversation on the rise of coaching, let's take a look at the other world. Now, in front of his computer, Jamel runs through lines of computer code inside Milan prison. Inmates are trained and then hired by a local startup to learn how to code and develop websites. Other inmates are employed at the prison's historic printing works, where registers for the registry and police custody documents are printed. For all of them, working in prison allows them to escape a bit. And Mark, an inmate at the Milan prison in training with Code Phoenix, says, "I didn't expect this at all. It was when I arrived here in the arrivals guide that I saw that there was a web training course, and that's when I immediately asked to be part of that course. It was quite quick precisely to add this string to my CV." Now, a Bengal tiger last seen a week ago roaming the lawns of suburb Houston and terrifying locals has been found unharmed and has been moved to an animal sanctuary. The animal, named India, had been in the custody of the wife of its owner, a 26-year-old man seen in social media videos last week kissing the untethered tiger before placing it into his car and driving off. The man, identified as Victor Cuvez, was arrested Monday, freed Wednesday, then rearrested last Friday. He had faced a past murder charge, and when the incident began May 9th, frightened neighbors saw the 9-month-old tiger wandering through their yards in a residential neighborhood. Videos showed an off-duty sheriff's deputy pulling a gun when he saw the tiger before Cuvez arrived to take it away. Now, the animal was recovered by the owner's wife, and she agreed to hand it over to the police.
Okay, are we transferring him? No, we're just transferring this over. Okay. Okay, because there is...
Now, Miss Mexico is crowned Miss Universe on Sunday in Florida after fellow contestant Miss Myanmar used her stage time to draw attention to the bloody military coup in her country. Sunday night marked the Miss Universe competition's return to television after the pageant was cancelled in 2020 for the first time due to the pandemic. Andrea Meza, 26, finished first ahead of the Brazilian and Peruvian finalists in a flashy televised event hosted by American actor Mario Lopez and television personality Olivia Calpo.
Hotel y casino, a ustedes en sus casas, gracias por la sintonía. Telemundo ofreciendo una maravillosa noche nuevamente.
México tiene una tercera reina, una tercera...
Well, back to a conversation on the rise of coaching, but before we went to break, we had actually said it is important that you actually are certified to be a coach before you go around giving this kind of services. And still with us, Emily Kamundo Osoro, Global Director, International Coaching Federation, Evelyn Munyoki, HR Director at KQ, and Lucas Maranga, who is a mentor and entrepreneur. And Emily, at this point, it will be important to explain to us, how do you get certified as a coach?
Thanks, Gladys. That's a really great question because picking from our latest research, our latest global research at the ICF, the biggest challenge we have today, and not just a local issue, it's a global problem, is the growth of untrained people calling themselves coaches and market confusion of what coaching is and what it's not. So given that you want to have your people trained by an accredited body. So what the International Coaching Federation does, it actually accredits these institutions. So ICF in itself is more like a regulating, we're a self-regulated industry. So it kind of sets standards and credentials for coaches. So if you want to know where do I train for coaching, you go to coachingfederation.org, you will be able to find all the accredited schools that actually can provide you with training. It would be such a shame if you went for a program and then later on realize, oh my goodness, this certificate is not valid. So you want to train with an organization that is accredited by the International Coaching Federation. Mm-hmm. The second piece is, how do you know that somebody is actually a professional coach? How do you find out? Ask them these questions. Where did you train? Where did you train? And you can always go back to check whether that school is actually accredited. And you can ask them questions like, well, how many hours of your training, of coaching did you receive? The reason I say this is because the ICF is the only membership body that of trained coaches, and the requirement is a minimum of 60 hours of coach-specific training. So somebody who's gone through that, a minimum of that, you can be sure that they have received the requisite training. And asking them questions around what kind of modalities they use. Do they use any assessments, for example? Mm-hmm. Those would be good questions for you to really evaluate, you know, whether somebody actually knows what they're talking about. And also even asking them where else they have coached, you know, about their work and their experience. So those would be important questions to lead you to the right direction. And finally, the ICF has got a directory of coaches who are members. Not everybody who's trained is on the ICF, but if you get an ICF coach for sure, then you know you have the best.
Okay, so this directory, is there a portal that I can go to and actually see if this person is on the list?
Yes, in fact, on the ICF site, you just go there and find a coach. You will see a list of credentialed coaches, but you also have coaches who are certified, but they're not credentialed, so that's the difference. So in Kenya, for example, we have just under 40 credentialed coaches.
Okay.
But the ones who are trained are probably more than 1,000, mm-hmm. But they are certified coaches. What the difference is that a credentialed coach has gone through rigorous practice of coaching and ethical standards of the ICF and met certain requirements that really puts them above the rest. If I give you an example, you would need a minimum of 100 practice hours for you to get a credential. So other than the certificate that you receive mm-hmm. from the institution, you then need to practice coaching, just like the way doctors practice, just like the way lawyers practice and the like. So really, really important. So if you got an ICF credentialed coach, then you know that you have one that has got the global, the gold standard.
Okay, so let me understand this. So you have been certified, you have to practice for a number of weeks, months, years for you to actually get the accreditation?
Yes, because you have to earn it. You have to go through the practice and then take a certain exam with the ICF as well, so that then you are able to attain that credential. You also receive mentorship from a coaching perspective for you to be credentialed. So I think the confusion that there is a lot of people don't know the difference. So as long as you're trained and you're certified, you're qualified to coach. I think that's important. But then the next level is becoming credentialed, because then it puts you also in a market that is even more competitive. It puts you in the global platform. You can coach from, you know, anybody around the world, and you're easily accessible as a coach, not just to your local market. So I think those are some of the advantages of becoming a credentialed coach. And coming back to your initial comment earlier of those who are thriving, I find a lot of those coaches who are credentialed have more opportunities actually than just getting a training in itself.
Okay, and back to you, Evelyn, working with a team that has different needs again. I'd like to understand, how have you seen, especially in this pandemic, the needs coming out, being separated, and of course those that have actually needed more time than others? How do you handle this?
Okay, maybe what I can speak to is during the pandemic, different people handle the situations differently. I think one of the things that even as a leader, even if you are using a coaching style in an organization, one of the things that you want to have your ears to the ground about is how your team is actually doing. And to understand that and by asking, you really find yourself, like Emily said, you really find yourself requiring to listen. Remember, you're also going through the pandemic as a leader and as a coach. You really need to be able to actively listen, to actively look at what kind of questions do you want to ask for you to be able to progress this conversation a little bit further, where you sense that there's something that is up, especially with either an individual employee or a group of employees. It's not easy. I think it's not. If anyone was to say that coaching is easy in terms of embedding it or in terms of using it as a style in an organization, it's one of those things that you have to take as a journey. And one of the things that I have seen in the pandemic is you kind of have to prioritize people's humanity and well-being, and what Emily talked about, the empathy side, because if you lose people at that level, you lost them completely. And being able to recover and have people be more resilient is going to be quite difficult for you to get them back on board. People do want to get a sense of being valued, especially at this point, being understood, leading with empathy, leading authentically, that also you can be able to provide, to give the bad news, but also you're able to empathize and be able to be human-centered in what you're trying to do. Is that always possible? No. You will have some missteps. You will have situations where you've had to use a completely different style. But I think the integrity of integrity of the intent is what is critical. That you actually want people to walk through a lifestyle of coaching and get the benefits, like I said earlier, of that gift of being able to be coached through some of those very difficult situations. Now, you may have had numerous stories about people giving up, people sort of battling down pressure. And you have to be careful as well, like Emily said, is this a situation you need to go into therapy, or is this a situation that actually coaching will help you rediscover or find a solution for the situation that you're facing? So no one size fits all, but I think one of the things that you can use are just the coaching skills to be able to walk with people through the change and walk with people through the difficult situation we find ourselves.
And Lucas, in the entrepreneur field, what have you seen are the needs that have popped up during the pandemic, and perhaps the need, addressing through coaching?
The cheese has moved a lot thanks to COVID. And there are very many businesses changing, others are beginning, others are closing. I personally have run an events business for many years. And needless to say, because of social distancing, people are hardly gathering. So I've had to pivot and find other ways of meeting my daily bread, as it were. So the needs during the last 1 year have been immense in business. We've seen new taxes with government coming in. So I could give a whole list of changes that have happened in the business world. So coaching, I think to me, over this last year and a half has been very necessary to really help guys pivot, especially in dealing with the anxiety and the fear, because there's been a lot of that, because you've been doing things in a certain way, and then Corona has come and your business is rendered obsolete, or new opportunities come and you don't know how to go about them. So coaching has been good, because by asking questions, you start discovering potential in yourself and in others. So it's been almost a must-have in the business circles because of what has happened in the world thanks to Corona.
And somebody is asking here, interesting, kwani hii coaching ni ya watu wameomoka peke yake? Emily says, hapana. So let's just talk about somebody perhaps who's out of school, trying to figure out what they would like to do. Some of us were asked in that interview, what would you, or where would you see yourself in 5 years? Most people don't know how to answer that question, but I think in this day and age, you're given the opportunity to address it before it's asked to you. So how would you advise that young mind who's thinking about coaching or doesn't even know it exists, but it's actually something they could plug into?
They might be surprised they've actually maybe received coaching at one point in their lives. They just didn't know they were receiving coaching. Because remember, we said this happens in day-to-day conversations. And to also answer the question, coaching is for everybody. I think over time we've always just thought it's for executives, but it actually, you find that high-performing organizations make sure that all their employees have access to coaching, know what it is, and actually embrace and kind of put a budget for it. But then going back to probably the career development side of things, I think you will find that there are individuals who have actually specialized in that area. And for example, I coach a lot of people, not necessarily for a fee. So again, that's just to say that the service is available. And there are so many coaches out here also who are doing this pro bono. And in fact, this week we are celebrating the International Coaching Week globally. And during this week, what we do is actually to just give that sense of what is this coaching, making sure people experience what coaching is at the point where they are. So it is possible to actually, facilitate this type of service even in universities, at organizational level, on one-on-one, individually. So the service is available, and I think in terms of affordability and reach, it just depends on who's offering it and on the receiving side. So I would say how you price it, how you place it, just depends on the type of market that you're in and the type of audience that you're working with. So it is accessible. I think it's just that there has been this perception that it's way up there, it's for the wale wameomoka,
but that's not the case.
That's not the situation.
Okay, Evelyn, I'm curious to know, when you are recruiting individuals into your organization, do you actually see those that have received coaching prior stand out?
Okay, maybe what I can mention about that is that coaching should actually help you as a capability to be able to pick out the people who are actually attuned to your culture or attuned to the things that you want to do as an organization, as you bring in and retain, because you may be able to attract them, but also how do you make sure that they stay with you? So the way I would answer that is we don't necessarily, we haven't put that as one of the minimum requirements, but what you want to see is that even in the interactions that you have, are people displaying some of the coaching skills? So, for example, are they curious? Are they asking questions, the right questions? Not just asking questions for the sake of it. Are they asking the right questions? Are they able to? Are they self-aware? because those actually are fertile ground for you then to actually get the person on board, and actually that person then becomes quite coachable, and going forward can actually be a coach to other people in the organization. As internal, when you're looking for people to join the organization, I think it's critically important. And that's why I keep saying that the leaders at all levels must have a coaching capability, because it is so critical to be able to listen, even when you're trying to bring people on board. Listen, ask the right questions, because then you're able to delve deeper and also be authentic, being authentic, because part of bringing in people is actually also you being authentic and being vulnerable to say, this is what this actually means. And I want to help whoever comes on board on the journey of the reality of the situation in your organization. Because I think we sometimes we'll tend to paint very rosy pictures about what the organization is about.
Yeah.
And then people have some serious lack of return on expectations about what has happened. So that expectation gap already creates disgruntlement. So as part of being a leader, I think that coaching capability, I use it. So I'm able to ask questions a lot more. I'm able to listen actively, even to what is being unsaid, because that is a very deep level of listening.
Yeah.
What is actually left unsaid. Yeah.
Very well said. And Lucas, we said coaching helps you, work at 100% optimum. So when you think about your experiences, do you think you would have been in a better place if coaching was introduced to you when you were younger?
I think so, but also sometimes there's a quote I've had that when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, something like that. So I think maybe it would have created a new level of awareness, but I think I also it also came to me when I felt right for it. But so I don't know if it would have, but maybe it would have. I would also discount it. But I think it just came at the right time. I was ready and the teacher appeared and coaching happened.
Okay, now you're coaching others. Would you suggest somebody taking this up when they're younger?
Yes, I think the answer would be yes, but probably introduce it pole. And just by asking those questions, as Emily said, many of us have experienced coaching without knowing experience in coaching. So you ask that question, someone tells you, oh, last week that question really made me think and I discovered this. Then you continue. Then at some point, you almost bring it to their awareness. Do you know this has been coaching happening? And then now they even probably embrace it even much more easier. So you can lead, but pole and wisdom based on where someone is, not where you are, where the other person is.
Okay, so Emily, you are the Global Director, ICF, and the question is, did you receive coaching and when did you and why?
So I interacted with coaching the very first time, I believe in 2008. Then I was working as a HR head in a certain organization. And I was sent for a course, and that's when I discovered this coaching. And the conversation was very intriguing for me, and it was very transformational in the sense that I learned a lot about myself. I started rediscovering myself and really appreciating where my weak areas were, that I didn't always have to be so defensive. I wasn't a very good listener, to be honest. I would speak a lot, and there was feedback I received from colleagues, and so through having coaching conversations, then I realized there is something I needed to do to work on myself. And then I went ahead actually to then incorporate this within my organization for other leaders, and I liked it. I liked what I experienced, and I decided, you know what, I think I need to go further. So I was out searching for a certification program. In 2014 is when I received my certification. And then I joined the ICF as a member. I've been active ever since, and really glad to be playing in this field of coaching. And please allow me to answer your question earlier. I want to borrow Lucas's question about starting this at a young age. To be honest, from where I come, from my upbringing, we come from a very authoritarian kind of, and when we are growing up, we are told what to do, we are scared, we can't speak up. And I think the gift that coaching gives us is to be able to have that confidence, to know who you are, to be able to stand for what you believe, to be able to be creative enough, right, to come up with whatever it is, to live your dreams. And right now, even with this new CBC learning, I think teachers are using more of these modalities of allowing kids to be creative, to come up with solutions, and actually they're using more of the coaching skills. And what a gift if we could actually have this implemented as our young ones are learning, instead of more of telling and giving them the answers. I think it's very, very transformational when it starts at a young age in terms of building that self-awareness, the self-confidence, and really being able to go for your dreams. And I speak from a very personal point of view because I have seen this transformation in myself, being a very introverted individual, to somebody who is then able to really appreciate who they are, to be okay with their, you know, weaknesses, to be okay and recognize that we can learn, we can grow, and we can also influence others through this whole gift of coaching. So that's been my journey, and it's been extremely transformational. And it's really beautiful to be able to then pass this gift on to others and be able to educate the public, even in terms of where coaching has got impact. And I say the greatest impact comes when there is access. When there is access, when there is affordability, that's when you have impact. And I think we even looking at it at a national point of view in the corporate organizations that we operate. So the more people there are that are taking this up, remember also coaching is an investment.
Yes.
It's a huge investment. So to be able to really cater for that, then you need volumes, you need numbers to be able to do that. So I believe even providers of coaching actually are able to bring in affordable programs, are able to bring accessible programs, take them to schools, for example, as part of academia. And I think it will have such a big transformation, because remember 70% of the working population are now, you know, millennials, you know, the younger generation of tomorrow. So it would be such a huge investment if they can tap into coaching at this particular time.
All right, the rise of coaching. Emily Kamunde Osoro, Global Director, International Coaching Federation, Evelyn Munyoki, who is the HR Director at KQ, and Lucas Maranga, who is a mentor and entrepreneur. Thank you for your time and also sharing your experiences in different perspectives. We really appreciate